Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. Joining us today live from his home in Beit Shemesh is Hillel Fuld. I'm speaking from my home in the southern Hebron Hills, Susia. I know I've been off the air for many weeks, and it's great to be back. There's a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about, and I just want to do a quick introduction to our guest, Hillel Fuld. Some of you may know him. He's pretty outspoken. He's a global speaker, a startup advisor, a tech columnist, and he's really blogging every day these days on Facebook. I'm sure many of you follow him. He speaks on all kinds of issues. And he made Aliyah in 1993 from Queens, New York at the age of 15. And look, a successful Aliyah as a teenager. So don't tell me you can't be done, because Hillel is proof that it can be done. Today, he is 46 years old, lives in Beit Shemesh, father of 5. And what did he tell me? A carnivore. Thank you for that. A carnivore. Yeah, we love our meat over here in Israel. But I brought Hillel on the show today because he wrote something a few days ago, February 19th, I think, about Aliyah. And, you know, the climate here in Israel has been very dark. And it's been hard even for me to come up with anything really motivational to say. And it was so refreshing to see someone pretty much save me. And Hillel, you did that. You wrote a beautiful piece. And I'm not going to read it all, but one thing you wrote was, when the Israelites stood on the shore of the Red Sea, they yelled to Hashem to save them. God looked at Moshe and said, "Why are you yelling at me? Tell the Israelites to jump in and go." And today Hashem is saying to us, don't wait for me to bring you home. Just get in the sea and go. And then I can finally bring Mashiach. And you go on to talk about El Al, how that is the wings of eagles. And I was like, yes, why, are people, what are they waiting for? What more do they need? And if you could expound on that a little bit and share with our viewers, our listeners, because they are listening, I'll tell you, from all over the world today: Israel, United States, China, Sweden, Belgium, Hungary, Canada, Argentina, Germany, Russia, and Japan are all listening in. So you have the whole world listening to your words. No pressure, but the Jews, we're talking about U.S. speaking Jews, a lot of English speaking Jews listen to the show, and we're waiting for you. And Hillel, take it away. What do you have for them?
So I guess I should start with a disclaimer and apologize in advance to anyone that this might offend. But if I told my grandmother this in 1939, she would also have been offended. So you're just going to have to get over it. This comes from a place of love, not from a place of judgment. And that's my disclaimer. Now I'm going to jump in. This last week's Torah portion, was Mishpatim. And right before Shabbat, my father sent me something that was just beautiful. I don't know exactly who said it, but it's beautiful. The portion, after all of the narratives, all the stories of the Israelites and the 10 plagues and the exile from Egypt and the splitting of the sea, it's all very dramatic and inspirational and amazing. And all of a sudden, this portion comes and it's Mishpatim, and it's these trivial, technical Torah commandments. And you're like, what in the world is going on here? And it starts with slavery. And, all of the commentary asks this question. But I want to focus on something that he sent me, my father sent me, is just absolutely beautiful. So the first portion is Torah mitzvah in this week's Torah portion, as I mentioned, is slavery. And the story is that an Eved Ivri, a Israelite or Hebrew slave, is freed, and he says, "No, I don't want to leave." It says in the Torah the following words: "Ahavti et Adoni," I loved my master, meaning I want to stay, I want to continue to work. Et ishti, my wife, vet banai lo etzei chofshi. I love my master, I love my wife, and I love my children. I am not willing to go free. So the obvious question is, we know the Torah doesn't have extra words. So what is with the Adoni, et ishti? Why doesn't it just say, I want to stay? End of story. So my father said something beautiful. He said, Ahavti et Adoni, I love my master, aka my livelihood. You're paying me good money. I don't want to leave. I'm good. I'm making money. My parnasa. I have a good job in America. I'm not coming to Israel, right? Et ishti. My wife doesn't really want to come, and my parents are elderly, and my kids have special needs. I have so many things with family that I just can't pick up and come to Israel. Ve'et banai, and my kids are going to go off the derech. I go to Israel, I'm not going to be as religious. My kids are in Lakewood. They're nice and protected from, God forbid, I say that obviously with sarcasm, secular Jews who have tattoos and earrings. Oh my God. So I'm going to stay here. Lo etzei chofshi. I'm not going to go free. You have the chance to go free. You say, no, I love my livelihood. I love my family. I love my kids. I'm going to stay in America. And the answer is you bring this slave, according to the Torah, to the doorpost. Reminds us, of course, of Mitzrayim, where God's jumped over the doorpost and is saying to this Eved, don't forget who you are. You're not a slave to another human being. You're a slave to God. And God's telling you to come to Israel. And what do? They pierce his ear. Why his ear? Because again, God's saying, you who stood at Mount Sinai and heard that you're supposed to be an Eved, a slave to God, not to human beings. You're choosing to be a slave to human beings. We're going to pierce your ear to remind you to remember the things that you heard at Mount Sinai. And so, it's obviously not, in the actual black and white text, it's not referring to, of course, to Jews in the exile, but it's a beautiful thought that we just don't want to go free. We want to stay in our slavery to materialism and all the other things that we're so addicted to in the exile and say, I don't want to go free. And the Torah says that's not the right way to go about it. Your job is not to stay there. Your job is to go free. Furthermore, by the way, we don't even have to go that far because, I'll tell you something, this war, with all the darkness and all the devastation, I think if there's any silver lining for me, it's that it really brought the Torah to life for me. So many things that I learned throughout my life, I never really questioned or understood at depth until this war. And I'm going to share two of those things with you. One is, we know that according to Rashi, the commentary on the Torah, 80% of the Israelites stayed back in Egypt. And we have to understand, God performed the 10 plagues. God's like, get out of here, go. 210 years of backbreaking slavery, go. And they're like, no, I think I'll stay. 80%. You're like, what? So we learned this. I learned this my whole life, and I never asked, well, what was their narrative? Like, they must have had some sort of an explanation. How did they justify that? And then, a few portions later, we were in the desert, and God's like, all right, go into Israel. They're like, we'll send some spies first to check. And God's like, spies? Just go in. They're like, no, we'll send spies. We're going to take the 12 of the biggest rabbis of the generation, the heads of the tribes. We're going to send them in. Famously, 10 come back and they speak badly about the land of Israel and basically say, don't listen to God, stay in the desert. And you're like, what the? Like, again, I never asked myself that question. How could it be the 10 of the biggest rabbis of the generation said to not listen to God? Well, the answer is very obvious if you really think about it. The first one is they're in Egypt and you're telling them to, leave this land. They're like, I was born in Egypt. My parents were born in Egypt. My grandparents were, I'm Egyptian. Land of milk and honey, 40 years in the desert. What are you, nuts? I'm going to stay here. You're like, but you're a slave. Yeah, but I have a roof over my head and I have food on the table. But you're being persecuted. This is my home. Like, what? And then what's the narrative of the spies? Biggest rabbis. What did they say? It's obvious. They're in the desert. They have food directly from God. They have clouds of glory protecting them. They have a direct line of communication with God. They are very religious. I'm not going to go into Israel and build an economy. I'm going to stay in the desert where I'm very religious. These are the narratives of the American Jews today. One is, I'm comfortable, I'm American, I'm going to stay. You're like, but there's anti-Semitism. Yeah, but it's not affecting me. I'm going to stay here. And then there's the spies, right? The more, let's call them right-wing, more ultra-Orthodox American Jews say to us, I'm not going to come to Israel. My kids are in Lakewood. They're secluded. They only know religious Jews. I'm not going to go to Israel where they can be, God forbid, influenced to leave. And it's like, God's like, are you insane? Are you literally saying that I'm telling you to go to the land of Israel, but you're too religious to listen to God? Like, are you on drugs or something? What's wrong with you people? But it's the same narratives over and over again. And so it seems that God has done literally everything he could possibly do to say to us, get on a plane. If you're not going to get on a plane because Israel is the most amazing country in the world, if you're not going to get on a plane because the incredible, existential war that we're winning right now, you're not coming on a plane to support your brothers and sisters, then get on a darn plane because I'm sending you anti-Semitism to remind you that you're not home. Get on a plane. And then American Jews are like, nah, I think I'll stay here.
Yeah, they will always find an excuse, and they'll say this will pass, and it will pass.
You know what, though? I have to say, and I'm going to repeat it. I know I said it before, but I have to repeat it. Anybody who's listening and thinks I'm being super condescending or pretentious, it's like, oh, it's not so easy to leave. It's true. I'm not dismissing any of your concerns. I came here when I was a kid with my family. I didn't make any sacrifices, so I fully recognize that picking up and leaving the life that you built and the livelihood is hard. I'm not trying to belittle that or, dismiss those concerns. They're very legitimate concerns. And so, okay, you could say, I can't leave right now. My parents are elderly. I'll leave in 5 years. Great. But at least have a plan. Those American, or I shouldn't say American, Jews in the exile who say to me, nah, this is my home. I'm like, are you insane? Like, do you not read? Someone said to me recently that if learning from history has taught us anything, it's that we don't learn from history. It's like, open a history book, people. What do you think is going to happen? We know it's going to happen. It's not going to get better. It's never gotten better. There's no precedent for anti-Semitism to go back in the bag. It's out, and it's going to get worse.
All right. For those of you listening on February 23rd, Sunday, I want to give the phone number out because we have a WhatsApp number. You can call us from anywhere in the world. It's +972 555 642978. Again, +972 555 642878. That's also on the homepage of our website, israelnewstalkradio.com. And please call in because there are a lot of probably upset people from Hillel's talk. I don't know, but it's okay. Get people angry. I don't care. A lot of people say to me, no, Natalie, we don't want people to come because of anti-Semitism. We want them to come because they're Zionists. We want them to come because they love you. I said to them, I don't care why they come. Get them here. Just get them here.
Yep.
And, Hillel's just raised a very good point. We talk about this on our show all the time, how many, roadblocks there really are to come when you're an adult, when you have already made your living and you've made your life and you've grown your family. It's true. It's true to pull it out. Hillel doesn't know. He was 15 years old. He didn't have to make any decisions. I was 33. It was a little harder, but even so, if you look at it as an adventure, it will be an adventure. If you look at it as a sacrifice, it'll be a sacrifice. So you really have to adjust your attitude. And if anti-Semitism is going to drive you out, come with as much as you can, and come as fast as you can. Don't come when when Israel closes its borders, God forbid, like happened during Corona. Hillel, you remember that happened. That was crazy.
100%. And by the way, anti-Semitism absolutely should not be the reason that you come to Israel. But, when I came to Israel, when you came to Israel, Israel was basically a third world country. Like, you couldn't get tuna fish in this country. Now, we're like in paradise here. Like, I don't buy the whole narrative of like, you could come to Israel, but you have to lower your quality of life. That is just that's fake news, my friends. Fake news. I'm living as good of a quality of life in terms of materialism. Forget spirituality. Materialism, as any of my friends in the States who are all investment bankers and lawyers and doctors, I'm living just as well as them. I lack nothing in my life. In fact, I ask my kids pretty often, is there anything in this world that you want that you don't have? And the answer is unequivocally, no. We have everything. We're living an amazing life here. And I don't want to belittle anyone's concerns. I get it. I understand. There are roadblocks, but moving to Israel today is not like it used to be. You can make, if you're good at what you do, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're good at what you do and you're willing to work hard, you could make more money in Israel than you can outside of Israel. And I'm speaking from personal experience.
Yeah, and let's just not talk about money. Let's talk about the quality of life. It's very high here. It is higher. You actually mentioned somewhere about crime, which is crazy because I actually just wrote a piece about crime also. And where I live in a yeshuv. There is no common crime here, and there's just no crime. You don't lock your doors. You don't. If you lose money, someone will find the money and bring it to you. That's right. The level of quality you get in Israel. Now, you live in a city. You live in Beit Shemesh. It's right. A big city. What's it like there? Crime-wise.
I got to tell you a story that I didn't publish yet. It just happened. It will be published on Ynet within about 2 hours. Okay, so I'm giving you a scoop here, all right? This is a true story. This happened this morning. If you want to know what it's like to live in Israel, listen to this story. This is the whole thing. So my son is in the army, and he was told late last night on Saturday night, it's now Sunday, that he was told late last night that he has to get to the base at 7:30 in the morning. So, okay, he could take public transportation. We're an hour away from where he needed to be, and public transportation, he would have to leave the house at, let's say, 5:45 in the morning, which is kind of annoying. And, he wanted to go out with his friends on Saturday night, so I said, all right, no problem, I'll drive you. So we wake up, 6 o'clock, 6:15, out the door. I drive him to his base. He's super happy. Everything's great. On the way back, my light, shows up, lights up in my car that I'm missing air in my tire. So I'm like, okay, big deal. Sometimes that happens. I'll go into a gas station, fill it up. No problem. I keep driving. Pretty quickly, it was clear that I wasn't missing air in my tire and that I had a pretty bad flat. It was making a lot of noise, and I was in the middle of the highway. I'm like, what the heck do I do now? I couldn't stop in the middle of the highway. So I literally pulled into the nearest gas station. I'm talking like obliterated. The tire was just like gone. I was like, what the heck do I do now, right? I mean, I tried to fill up air. It was just so flat, you couldn't even fill up air. I was like, what do I do? So, I had heard many times over this organization called EDD, right, that I mean, you can't make this stuff up, okay? This is an organization of people. You can't even understand this outside of Israel because this is so foreign to you. It is an organization of random volunteers who have an app, and they get called when someone needs help on the road, and they just drop everything and they just come and they help when they don't take money, like zero, nothing. What's in it for them? Nothing. Just doing good. That's it. So I call Yedidim, waited a little bit. Someone comes, pulls up. Hi, you need help? Yes. 18-year-old kid named Shiloh from Shalavim. Okay, the guy's learning Torah full time. All right, not a Haredi guy, religious guy, not a Haredi guy, learning Torah full time. Okay, he gets out of his car, puts on his yellow vest, gets down by the car, kneels, starts taking things apart, blah blah blah, whatever. Fine. Okay, so we take off the tire. It's, like I said, completely obliterated. All right, so we put it in his car, and we start going to the pancheria to get a new tire, basically, right? We get there, and they don't have my tire. Okay, we go to another pancheria. Remember, this guy is on a Sunday morning, in the middle of his life, he just drops everything. Right. We go to another tire place. They don't have it. Go to another. Wow. In between, I haven't gotten started yet. In between each tire place, number one, not only is he not letting me, like, hold the tire to bring it to his car. Let me at least do something. He wouldn't let me do that. He wouldn't let me open the door for him. And I was like, dude, like, can I do something? He's like, this is my mitzvah. Like, leave me alone. This is for me. I'm doing this. Like, don't you dare take this mitzvah away from me. Okay. Anyway, so we get in the car. I haven't even gotten started yet. We get in the car, and we start talking, whatever, small talk. And I don't know, those that are watching or listening might not be aware, but my older brother, Hillel Fuld, was tragically murdered in a terrorist attack 6 years ago, and his terrorist is part of this hostage deal, so he's getting out, or he got out yesterday. And so, as dark as this might sound, like, this is what people talk about in this country. So I'm making small talk. I'm like, oh, by the way, it's an extra mitzvah that you're helping me today, because it was a pretty hard couple of days. And the guy, I said my brother's name, he turns white. He's like, you're Hillel Fuld's brother? I was like, yeah. He goes, oh my God, what a merit. Thank you so much for letting me help you. I was like, you know my brother? He's like, do I know your brother? Of course it's like a random dude. Okay, fine. Amazing. We continue to drive. He gets a phone call. He gets on the phone, and he's talking in Hebrew, and I'm sitting there, I can't not eavesdrop. I'm sitting next to him in the car, and he's saying to someone on the phone, oh, you're going into Gaza? Okay, please take care of yourself. Keep us posted, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and he's super calm, chill. And I'm like, okay, he's probably like a friend of his or something. He gets off the phone. I'm like, who was it? He goes, my dad. I'm like, your dad's going into Gaza right now? He goes, yeah, he's been in reserve duty since October 7th. He's in the Army nonstop. I'm like, he's going into Gaza right now, and you're bothering, but what? Go be with your dad. No, he's okay. I'm like, is this hard for him? He goes, yeah, but he knows it's his job. I'm like, what about your mom? My mom's a principal of a school. It's really hard, but she knows this is her job. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, we're going place to place to find this tire. We finally find this tire. We come back to my car. He kind of kneels down to whatever, and of course another car stops and says, hey, you guys need help? I turn around and look at this car. It says 85-year-old man. Like, he's going to get out of his car and put my tire back on. I'm like, where am I? What planet am I on right now? And then, so we finally get the tire. We put it back on my car, and I want to read to you word for word, because you can't make this stuff up. As I leave, this guy, and I thank him obviously 50 times, and I'm like, let me do something. Let me anything. No, he wouldn't let me do anything. So then he sends me a message. I want to find this message because it's just like the most beautiful thing in the world. He says to me, I'm translating. He says, I just looked you up on the internet, and now I realize who I helped. Thank you so much for this incredible merit. You, Ish Madhim, you amazing man. Thank you for doing everything you do for the Jewish people. I'm like, wow, what universe?
Amazing. Well, that's Israel. That's Israel, though.
Exactly. You cannot experience that anywhere in the world. Like, you want to know what it's like to live in Israel? This morning showed me what it's like to live in Israel. Like, if I had any doubts over the last couple of days, because it's been a rough couple of days, like, God's like, hey, let me just remind you what it's like to live in Israel. It's just unbelievable. We're living in miraculous times.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I'm also sorry about Ari and the whole prisoner release. It's just disgrace. And what is Hashem doing here? What is he telling us? He's got to be telling us something. This doesn't happen for nothing. Is he saying, get together, people, unify better? Is that what he's saying? Because things kind of did go back to October 6th, this past 15 months.
I mean, listen, it's a very, people like to simplify everything on the internet, especially the conflict in the Middle East, especially this deal, right? There's obviously people that are like, don't just obliterate them, flatten Gaza, don't dare sign a deal with them. It's the most horrible thing in the world. And then there's people on the other side who are saying, like, we got to get these hostages back at all costs. And the internet is black and white, as it always is. But real life is not black and white. And in real life, there's things called nuance. There's things called gray area. And I can tell you on a personal level, my brother's murder is being released. It's horrible. It's painful. It's devastating. It's tragic. And you know what else is? It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see these families reunited with their loved ones, watching these sites of these poor women who I don't even want to know what they went through, hugging their parents after 500 days in literally the dungeons of hell could not be more beautiful. It is the biggest testament to the value system of the Jewish people. And yeah, it's terribly painful to see these monsters walk free, but it's also terribly beautiful to see these families reunited. And it's a complex thing. It's not black and white. It's not horrible, and it's not amazing. It's both.
I don't know what to say. It's very hard. I'm just glad I'm not Bibi Netanyahu right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I do have one question that came in a few days ago, and I'd like to ask you before anything else comes in live. And it's a little off topic, but this guy is Ole from Canada, so I thought it was kind of interesting. He wrote to me this: ask Hillel this. Do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu's politically correct leadership can continue in a non-politically correct environment?
You know what? It's another example, right? It's unbelievable how, like, some people will say that Bibi's a fanatic, messianic, like crazy right wing. Some people will say he's super left. Like, I can't deal with the black and white. It's not black and white. I like you said, the last thing I don't want to be in Netanyahu's shoes, but he's doing the best he can. I'm saying you have to understand the complexity. Like, this is not easy, and people could talk a big game, but out of all the people that can't stand Netanyahu, not one of them literally has answered the question, who would you put in office instead of him? Like, what, you're going to put Lapid? What is this, a circus here? Like, what are you going to do, Gantz? Do you know a single opinion of Gantz? Like, give me an alternative. Bennett, we can debate Bennett. Yes, we didn't like what he did last time. We could debate that. I could say that I don't like what he did. He's also a very good friend of mine. I think he's an amazing leader, but he's not in politics. So what? Nir Barkat? Maybe. Does anybody like him? Does anybody support him? So, like, let's not. It's not so easy to be in Netanyahu's shoes right now. And you know what? His government. Some people think they're, like, again, like crazy messianic right wing. Oh my God, Ben Gvir and Smotrich. And other people are saying, how could he not, take Trump's ultimatum and flatten Gaza? Like, guys, stop it already. It's not so simple. It's complex. It is complex. Of course, we'd want to see Gaza flattened and all, but we also have our hostages there. So, like, guys, take it easy. Like, we got to do, we got to be strategic about this, because the last thing we want to do is, fight a war emotionally, right? We're all angry, we're all devastated, but that's not the right way to fight a war. You got to think strategically. And I think till now, again, it's been a hard war, but if you look at the accomplishments of the state of Israel, I think it's very hard to make the claim that Netanyahu hasn't done incredible things in this war.
All right, we could say that. The recent administration in America has changed hands, and now President Trump is very pro-Israel, and his colleagues, and the American Jews, a lot of them who maybe had been leaning towards Aliyah, are now taking a pause. What do you have to say to them to light them on fire? Because, we can talk anti-Semitism right and left. There are places that don't feel it at all.
Right. There's like 2.5 places left in America that doesn't feel it yet. I say yet because they will. But no, there's no question that Trump has slowed down the process. Yeah. But as my friend Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg said once, American Jews are on a business trip. Right? When you're on a business trip, you get a nice hotel, a nice car, you're living the life. But don't forget you're on a business trip. You're going home. Like, don't get confused here. So yeah, okay, things might have slowed down a little bit. Trump might maybe like, I don't know, half X speed, like on WhatsApp, so slowed it down, but it's not going back in the bag. Like, guys, open a history book. We know what's going to happen next. So if it doesn't happen in a year, it will happen in 2 years. If it doesn't happen in 2 years, what are you going to wait? Like, what has to happen? Because, again, this is what I say, like, it's all happened. If I told you there'd be anti-Semites in Congress.
They don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe it, Hillel.
But hold on. There's belief and there's fact. Okay? If I had told you 10 years ago, when I say you, I mean whoever you are around the world. If I had told you 10 years ago that in 10 years from now, there'll be anti-Semites in Congress, shuls will be vandalized, Jews will be beaten in the streets, academic institutions will not let Jews walk around freely, what will you do? You would have said to me, if that happens, I'm out of here. And here we are. So what constitutes a gun to your head? What would make you say, I need to get out of here? Like, what hasn't happened?
Okay. Well, so to some of these people, they'll say, well, the only answer they can say is, well, it hasn't happened to me.
That's great.
Right?
That's just genius.
Great. It is genius.
So
that's their answer. Teaneck. Why is Teaneck still there?
I don't see all I say to my friends. Great. That's fantastic. It's not affecting you yet. So I just say to them the following thing. I say, listen, hindsight's 20/20, right? So now you're looking back in 1938 and you're sitting with my grandmother, because there wasn't social media back then. And you're sitting with my grandmother knowing what's about to happen. And you say to her, listen, Mrs. Varga, you need to get out of here. And she'll say, what do you mean? What are you talking about? This isn't Spain here. We're enlightened. This is Germany. What are you talking about? You'll say, listen, you need to get out of here. Things are going really bad. Nuremberg laws, you got to get out of here. And she'll say, what would you say to her? Would you say, what again, all the other, arguments that I hear, we need to stay. We can't run away. Then we're giving in. We need to fight. Is that what you would tell my grandmother? Or would you just have to get the heck out of here? So okay, you want to make up all the excuses in the book there. I can make all the excuses for you if you want. I'll write you a book of excuses. If you want to be, real and you want to think as a religious Jew, objectively speaking, not only objective, it doesn't have to be a religious Jew, as a Jew, what God wants from you. I mean, what do we pray for? Again, you referenced it in the introduction, but we all know the famous story about the man in the flood who gets on the roof and says, God will save me. And the water starts, coming up towards the roof and they send a boat. And he said, get in the boat. He says, God will save me. And then they send a helicopter. He said, get in the helicopter. He says, God will save me. And then he drowns. And he goes up to God. He says, God, what the heck? I believed in you. Why didn't you save me? He said, why didn't I save you? I sent you a boat and a helicopter. Why the heck did you get on the boat and the helicopter? God's sending us everything. Elal, nefesh b'nefesh, anti-Semitism. He's saying this is not where you belong. Go home. And you're like, nah, I think I'm going to stay here. And then we're going to go up to God after 120 years. Mashiach should hopefully come by then. But if not, we're going to come to God and say, God, why didn't you bring me home? And he's going to say, I didn't bring you home. What are you talking about? I sent you every possible, everything. You didn't get on the boat. So we can justify things as long as, let's at least be honest. That's the bottom line. You want to say America's my home? Okay, fine. Say out loud. In every generation, in every single exile in the history of the world, Jews were massacred or exiled, but it won't happen here. Is that really what you're saying? Then say it out loud because you'll realize how ridiculous it sounds.
Yeah, it is a very scary thing. I put myself in their place, and what would I think? What would I see? And you should do the same, Hillel, because what would you think? What would you see? Now you and I are over here. We made the jump. It's very scary. If you go to the States, and I'm sure you do, now and then, you see how they've created a little Jerusalem there. I was in Miami, and I said, look, Miami isn't Jerusalem. And the Rebbitzin got up and said, Miami is the Jerusalem of America. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's really, by the way, every time I go to America,
very comfortable there, but too comfortable. This is not where you're supposed to be. When you're looking out the window, are you looking at the Judean hills or are you looking at Manhattan. The Turnpike?
Yeah. I got to tell you, every time I go to America, and I go quite often, I get off the plane, I enjoy the materialism, the cars, the good food, good food. Food is better here, but you know what I mean? I love right? But within about 30 seconds, I want to puke. Yeah. I'm like, do you know what you've built here? You guys are really confused. You seem to think that you're not on a business trip, that this is your home. You're nuts. You guys have lost it. I'm not saying not to live comfortably, but let's not forget where we're going. Does your Shemona Esrei not save Yerushalayim Yircha B'Rachmim Tashuv? I don't understand. I had this conversation once with a very yeshivish American. I was at a couple invited us over for dinner, and he's a chef and whatever. And so we started, of course, Zionism came up because they're not anti-Zionist, but they're not Zionists, And so the wife looks at me in the eye and she says, "What, you think all Jews belong in Israel?" I didn't know. I didn't even I was like, "Are you joking? Should all Jews keep kosher? Should all Jews keep Shabbos? The Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is not a mitzvah in your world? Do you not save Yerushalayim Yircha and you're davening? What are you even saying? Do you even hear the words that? Of course, all Jews belong in Israel. Does that mean they have to come up, pick up and come today? Some people, yes, some people not. But do all Jews belong in Israel? What kind of question is that? But again, when you kind of have an agenda, you'll find excuses to do whatever you have to do. But it's just blows my mind.
It's very difficult. And it's people take things personally, and they feel we're not Jewish, we're not religious enough, or we're not. Look, the excuses. We could fill a book with excuses. That's right. And it's hard to talk civilly sometimes to some of these people because, we're here, they're there. We live this way, they live that way. But we need a way to get them here. And I don't think we should be paying them. And I don't think we should be making it so easy. I really don't. Don't you think if people want to come, they should work to come? I mean, nefesh b'nefesh, birthright. It's that didn't exist when I was growing up. I don't think it existed when you were growing up. It hasn't made a difference. It really has not made a difference.
Listen, I think that intrinsically making Aliyah does come with struggles, right? I'm driving a car that in America costs $50,000, and here I paid $100,000. Right? There are struggles. It's not like I'm not saying it's super easy, but what you're saying is valid. I mean, if you think that one day you're going to wake up and say, "Oh, I could make Aliyah and there's no sacrifice and it's the easiest thing," okay, then that's never going to happen. Like let's just not kid ourselves. That being said, the concept, and I got to tell you this on a personal level, I've yelled, well, I don't yell, but I've literally told off friends of mine at Nefesh B'Nefesh because I keep getting phone calls from people saying, Nefesh B'Nefesh has told me that if I come, I have to cut my salary in half. And I'm like, why are you telling people that? That is just not true at all. It's just not true. And so I got to tell you that I've gotten personally at over 700 people jobs, out of which I would say 400 of them didn't have the quote unquote skills. And why is that important? It's a very important point because in Silicon Valley or in corporate America, like you'll go to an interview and be like, okay, you spent 3 years in this university. You've done this for a year and a half. I'm sorry. We need people who have been here for a year and 7 months. You've only been here for a year and 6 months. No go. That's not how things work in Israel. In Israel, for better or for worse, it's all about cups of coffee. It's all about protectio. It's all about, people say protectio, connections as a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you don't know how to capitalize on that and use the system, right? So, people who come here, and I say this in all my articles, and I mean this, anybody who comes here that needs help with this job market, I will drop everything, go buy you a shawarma, and I will help you find a job in this market, whether it's something you've done before or not. It doesn't matter because in this country, two things matter much more than skills. One is talent, which is you're born with it. You're a talented person. You could acquire skills. And two is relationships and connections. And I'm happy to be that conduit. I'm happy to be that resource to anyone who makes Aliyah. If you are making Aliyah and you heard this conversation, I'm not joking. This is a real offer. Do some research, find your favorite shawarma in Israel. It's on me. We will sit and we will discuss the job market, and I will make as many connections as I can. And I'm telling you that if you're good at what you do, you can make more money in this country than outside of this country. I guarantee you.
Very generous offer. There's one thing you didn't say. You said protexia, you said talent, but attitude. I think attitude is so important.
I agree.
Hillel said something very interesting just now, and I want to just go over it. When you go to a job interview in America, for instance, they check the boxes. You're right. They're very square. They follow they follow the rules. In Israel, you could be talking to the owner of the company. You could be talking to the guy who has a few companies. You have to be. You can be flexible here, and you don't need to worry so much about dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's.
Yep.
And it's much easier here that way. And if you are confident, and if you are adventurous, and if you have a decent personality and are willing to go towards a job that maybe you haven't done before, take that risk, because in Israel things can happen.
Yeah.
And especially if you're new here,
I call it the corporate hierarchy, right? If you're in, let's say, Silicon Valley, you want to have a lunch with Mark Zuckerberg. You can send as many emails as you want. You could make as many phone calls as you want. You ain't getting that lunch. It's not happening, period. If you're in Israel and you want to have lunch with, I don't know, the CEO of Wix, the founder of Waze, it's about an email and a half, and you find yourself having lunch with him. Everything is there's no corporate hierarchy. There's no formality. Everyone's very chill here, especially if you made Aliyah. People want to encourage Jews to come to Israel. So I'm telling you, everything you know about corporate America and how getting a job, I'll just give you one example, just one example. I say this all the time, right? What's the difference between sales and marketing? Think about this for 1 second. Sales and marketing, both at the end of the day need to sell something. So what's the difference? The answer is a word that doesn't exist in the Hebrew language. It might sound like I'm joking, but I'm actually not joking. There is no such word, and the word is subtlety, right? Marketing is subtle. There's no such word in Hebrew language. Can you think of a word that means subtle? Doesn't exist. Okay, doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. So marketing requires subtlety. Now, here's the thing. As a marketing professional, I can tell you 90%, maybe I'm exaggerating, 80% of what you need to work in marketing is culture. By the very fact that you have English and American culture, you're already a better marketer than, 80% of Israeli marketers. Yes, you have to learn skills. You have to learn how to use Twitter, how to do PR. This is stuff you'll pick up and you'll learn. But I'm telling you, just as one example, if you're American, you have English, you have American culture, you have an American mindset, you could already probably get into a marketing job on day one. And again, that's speaking from someone who has a degree in political science. What did I do in marketing for 15 years? All I did was things that you can do as an American without even realizing you can do them. So even if you're not working in marketing, you're working in sales, you can get a job in marketing pretty quickly in Israel just by the very fact that you have English. So it's just one example. There are a million other examples, but breaking into the Israeli market is a lot easier than you might think, in terms of like compared to corporate America. It's a lot easier. Seems to have lost you. I don't know. I could go on a monologue here. I don't know if you're something's up. I mean, I'll just listen, guys. All right, whatever. Till Natalie comes back. My offer is a real offer. I wasn't kidding when I said this. Like literally, if you make Aliyah and you heard this show, I'm not joking. Send me an email saying with the name of the show and the subject, saying you saw this here. I'm happy to jump on a call with you. Happy to jump on a Zoom with you. We'll schedule it. We'll talk. We'll schmooze. I'll hear about what you do. I'll hear about your challenges, your family, whatever it is that's maybe stopping you from making Aliyah. Let's get on a call. This is a real offer. And if and when not if, when you make Aliyah, I'll sit with you, have a cup of coffee or shawarma or pizza, whatever you want, and and then we'll discuss how to get you into the market. All right, that's it. It's a real offer.
I hope people heard that. On my end, you were frozen. I lost the whole bit.
Really, you disappeared on me, but okay, I don't know.
Yep. I just realized you disappeared. So hopefully that will be fixed in the editing room. And I'm sure you explained something very valuable.
I could talk about this stuff for hours. Like you could go have dinner or something. I'll just monologue this.
Yeah. I know, it's great. I don't need to say a word. I'm like, okay, just tell me a little bit of your intro and you'll fly. No, the thing that really worries me though is the slowdown. It really worries me, and I think we need to come up with some. I hate to say this, like some kind of new gimmick to get people to come, because what's going to happen is this. Trump is going to be in office for 4 years. We have Mike Huckabee loving Israel, right? All this pro-Israel, pro-Bibi, everybody's close now.
Romance.
The Jews, right? They're just sitting back. The Jews are going to sit back. They're going to keep building their shuls, keep building kosher restaurants. They're going to zero in on a few universities where they don't get beat up in the hallways, right? And then the end, it's going to be 2027. There's going to be a new election coming up for 2028, and it's going to be scary.
Yeah, so I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I don't think American Jews need a gimmick. I know you didn't mean this, but I don't think they're that shallow. I think it's a decision that needs to be made, and yeah. I don't want to think that it's going to be anti-Semitism that will put them over the edge. I really don't. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to be the reason they come home. But unfortunately, it's the same script. Unfortunately, in every single generation, every single empire, we, the Jews, this is what we do in every generation. We say to our hosts, right? The ancient Egyptians, the Greek, the Romans, the Soviets, the Nazis. We come and we say, hey, don't hate us. We're just like you. In fact, Germans, we're more German than you. Who are the most liberal people in America today? The Jews. We're more American than you, right? And we come to our hosts and we say, hey, don't hate us. We're just like you. And then our hosts, tragically, have to remind us. They're like, you're not just like us. We developed a tool to remind you that you're not just like us. It's called anti-Semitism. And then, anti-Semitism goes through the roof, and then we're reminded, unfortunately, when it's too late. So, I don't want to get
Who's reminded, make it very clear. It's not just the religious Jews that are reminded, it's all Jews. And it doesn't matter how assimilated you are.
Right.
That's scary.
So it's so sad to say the following sentence, and it as a family of Holocaust survivors, it's hard for me to say this, but there were literal Jews being led to the gas chambers, asking themselves, "Why am I even here? I'm not Jewish. I'm German. Why am I being led to? I'm just like the rest of. What am I doing here?" And that's the worst. That's the most tragic. At least if you're a proud Jew, you're going to own it. But being led to the gas chambers, not even knowing that you're Jewish, that's just tragic on a different level. So, that is, by the way, a nice segue to an entire other topic, which is, this whole, let's call it PR war that we're fighting online, right? Because why are we losing? We're losing so badly because we don't have a narrative. We should be owning the fact that we are a source of light in this world, but we are apologizing yet again. Oh, don't hate us. Don't hate us. No. Hate us all you want. We are a source of light, period. Not because we're better than anyone else, by the way. Not to be clear. I'm not a supremacist. My DNA is not better than anyone else's. But my value system, based on the Torah, and the emphasis on the family unit, and the emphasis on education in a very woke and very confused world, differentiates us. And that is why we are here when every other empire has disappeared. And we are here and we are flourishing. We will continue to flourish. So we have to own that. And unfortunately, we're too apologetic, as we always have been.
if you walk to the airport, and I'm sure you've been going to the airport these past 15 months, and you walk through the airport, you see the large poster headshots of all the hostages, and they're right there as you're walking. And it's tragic, it's depressing, it's awful to see. It's so sad. And I just stop and I would get flutters in my chest watching and walking by them one by one. And just my recent trip, I couldn't look anymore. And I decided, let me look over here. And I looked on the wall, and they have the most beautiful exhibit of Jewish history. And it's like the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah, the tribes. And I was like, awesome. Finally, something we could be proud of, because we are a big nation, an ancient nation with a lot to be proud of. We are not a nation of victims. And I am so sick of it. And I'm so tired of watching the horrible pictures, the sadness and the despair, when it's true. We need to grieve, of course. Okay. War is tragic for everybody. It's tragic for me. I have 2 sons in the army, and the third one going in 3 weeks. All right. I don't get a break at all. Everyone in my issue, Susia, you can read the statistics. We have the most fighters of all the Yishuvim. Every family here has either a father, a brother, or a son fighting. We've had 4 losses. It's awful. Okay. It's very, very sad. And one boy is still in a coma. It's terrible. But then you see the hostages. That's a whole other thing. Everywhere you go in Israel, you see pictures of these hostages. It's awful. And finally, to see something else and to remind us, yes, we have the Torah. We are an ancient people. We have a rich, rich history, and people just don't seem to remember that. Or if they never knew it, you know what? Now's the time to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, just to kind of strengthen your point, what you just described is yet again the dissonance that I keep referring to. It's that internal conflict. On the one hand, I can speak for my brother, right? Obviously, tremendous tragedy on a personal level, tremendous loss, and on the other hand, a tremendous source of pride. He's a national hero of the state of Israel. So your yishuv, your town, right? On the one hand, everyone's fighting, and there are people, who lost their lives, people in coma. It's tragic, but it's also tremendous pride that Jews could stand up and decide how to retaliate and to defend ourselves for the first time in thousands of years. So it's that conflict. We live in that conflict. We live in that dissonance, that internal paradox. We all have it, and it's something uniquely Israel, right? I don't think anyone else around the world really experiences such a thing. Our entire existence here is that internal conflict, constant internal conflict.
Yeah, never boring here.
That's true.
You're not going to find people over-medicated here, because you need to have your feet on the ground. You really do. That 18-year-old boy this morning, his father's going to Gaza. He's helping him change a tire. Amazing. Exactly. People here, you find this power. People sometimes meet me and they say, you wear so many hats, you do so many things. And I'm like, I'm nothing. You should see the women where I live. These people do everything. And I'm sure you can say the same thing in your community. People are
it's
superheroes
unbelievable.
here. They just
I gotta tell you, it's funny. Like, this is, again, just an example of a story that you can't, I don't think you can experience anywhere else. It's happened a couple of weeks ago in my shul on Shabbos. It was a bar mitzvah, a good friend of mine's kid's bar mitzvah. And, we're in the middle of davening, we're finishing the davening, and I'd say 20 minutes before the kiddush is supposed to start, the caterer is not there. And so this woman turns to my wife and she goes, is it normal that the caterer is not here? And my wife was like, yeah, no worries, she'll be here soon, whatever, 10 minutes. No caterer. It's like literally about to start. She's like, what is going on here? So they ran to the caterer's house and they're like, what is up? She's like, oh, it's this Shabbos? I thought it was next Shabbos. So she was supposed to prepare an entire spread basically, and she didn't even know. So we have literally 10, 15 minutes, and the woman, the mother of the bar mitzvah kid, is hysterical. What happens automatically? No one planned this. No one oversaw this. I mean, my wife had a big part in it, but everyone ran home, got food. Let me tell you something. I didn't even know that this had happened. When I came to the kiddush, I was like, why is it so much nicer than usual? Everyone brought food from their house, and It was the most beautiful kiddush we've ever had in the entire shul. And it was just, everyone that's Israel. That's community.
Yeah.
It's just community. A beautiful thing. I'm not, by the way, I just want to be clear. Like there's beautiful communities in the 5 towns and in Teaneck. Mm-hmm. I'm not dismissing that, but there's just something about it that you cannot define in words. It's just an experience of living in Israel. It's just uniquely Israel.
Yeah, fair. And all of you listening, please write in, Natalie at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. If you have questions for Hillel, if you want Hillel to take you to lunch for shawarma, if you are considering moving here and you do want to get his help, he made the offer. You heard the offer.
It's a real
Natalie
offer.
at israelnewstalkradio.com. I'll pass it on to him. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your questions. If you have more questions, write them in, call them in, but you're out of time to call them in live here. Hillel, any last words of advice for those sitting on the fence still with a line of excuses?
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. A couple of months ago, I was on a Zoom with a couple. He's originally Israeli. She's originally American. They live in America right now, and his father is a big psychologist in Israel. And the husband, the father, was telling me, my father's been telling me for years that I got to make Aliyah, I got to make Aliyah, I got to make Aliyah. And he goes, then the war broke out, and he said, my father told me that if I bring my kids now, I'm gonna cause some psychological damage. I was like, okay, breathe, Hillel, take a deep breath. It's like, I was so upset to hear those words. And I was like, listen, I don't know your father, and I'm sure he's a very smart man, and I'm sure he's a lot smarter than me, but I'm just going to tell you one thing. I said to him, if you think that when your kids are grown up and they're 40 and they look at you and they're going to understand that you had the chance to come to Israel and you decided not to, if you think they're going to say to you, Dad, thank you so much for not going to Israel when my brothers and sisters were fighting an existential war because you really liked your BMW in America, you're sorely mistaken. What your kids are going to say is, what the actual heck is wrong with you? Your brothers and sisters were fighting for their survival, and you decided to stay here for me? Are you insane? Why didn't you go to Israel when they needed you? That's what your children are going to say to you. And so all of the challenges, they're all validated. I understand it's not so easy. I'm oversimplifying. All of it's true. But this is where you belong. No matter how you look at it, whether you look at it from a religious perspective, or if you're a secular Jew, you look at it from a nationalistic perspective, or you're not interested in any of those things, you're looking at it from an anti-Semitism perspective, it's time. And again, open a history book because we know what's about to happen next. You don't want to wait till, I'm not going to say it's too late. You don't want to wait till you're being forced. Make the right decision. It's what's best for you and your family. It might be hard to grasp or to even imagine the scenario of picking up and leaving everything you built. I get it. But again, if you had a gun to your head, you would do exactly that. And unfortunately, whether you realize it or not, you have a gun to your head. It's time to come home. Besides, the best shawarma in this country. And you're getting a free shawarma. What else do you need?
I'll say this and then we're going to get off because I don't want to stay any longer. But, it's not like in the 1960s and the 70s, you come here, you can't ever visit again. It's too hard to fly. You come here, you could take your time selling your home, rent out your home. The internet works here. You can continue maybe with your job a little bit. You don't have to say goodbye. Probably a lot of your friends are here already. It's a much smaller world today. It is easier today. You don't
need to know. This is a very important point. I don't know if you agree with this, but you do not need to have fluent Hebrew or even close. In fact, I would say to you, I don't even have English. I don't have Hebrew on my computer. I've never sent an email in Hebrew in my life. The entire business sector conducts itself in English, and you can get along perfectly in this country with very, very basic Hebrew, and you could learn as you go. But there are endless communities where literally, I live in one. Everyone around me is American. They all came here. They speak basic Hebrew, but you get along fine. So Hebrew is not a barrier. I know that seems like, I don't know the language. Unnecessary. Yeah, you don't need to know the language.
You don't need it. You'll learn it. You'll get along. There are a lot of people also who just got here. You're not alone. My parents used to say, why are you living there? I'm not the only American. There are a lot of foreigners here. Yep. It's really a melting pot, and they will welcome you because, they just did it. It's really...
It's not foreigners, though. Can we not call them foreigners? They're home.
Okay.
Those guys are foreigners.
Correct. Oh, you're right. You're right. All right. They'll become Israeli. You'll become Israeli. That's all. Awesome. Thank you, Hillel. And, all of you listening, I hope you all take his offer and, get moving, open Nefesh B'Nefesh file or whatever you need to do.
LL.com.
LL.com. And I think, there are other airlines who fly here as well. So start getting to work. It really is worth it. And don't wait. Don't wait until it's too difficult to do. Thank you all for listening. We'll be here next week. IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And if you want to write to me again, Natalie at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Thank you so much. And we are signing off.
Hey everyone, to make sure you can get access to all of our interviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button on both our YouTube and Rumble channels. Your click makes us all stronger. Thanks.